Alright, so in this video we're going to be doing a swag off-road table stand. The purpose for this is, really it's for everything. It'll cut everything that'll fit through that little gap on the bandsaw, which is what, 5 inches? So it probably drops about 5 and a little more than because of the plate. Technically what it's going to be used for is for doing cold air intakes, turbo hot sides, turbo cold sides, and obviously cold air intakes. So let's get started. Show you what I got. I'm going to do something a little different than what everybody else does because I'm going to be the only one on YouTube that's going to paint it. Let's get started. So this is what you get when you order the equipment straight from Swag Off-Road. This is extra and this is extra. I think they're both very important pieces to have unless you just really can't afford it. Comes with all your hardware pieces, comes with the instructions you need, which are very clear and easy to understand, which is going to be something like this. Technically that's what it looks like. And your instructions. So this is some kind of coat, Cerakote, powder coat. I'm not sure what it was, but this is coated. This isn't just a raw metal. These are actually coated. They're not just raw metal. I'm assuming it's to keep it from rusting. You can see how they ground the back of it, I'm sure, because when they probably water jet it, you got all that excess material kind of sticking out of it. So that's what it looks like on the inside. But like I said, I'm going to paint these just to make them a little more signaturized instead of looking like everybody else's. Can you guess what color they're going to be? No, I didn't think so. Alright, well let's get it put all together and then I'll show you how it works and what it can do. Right now we're just going to focus on painting it and prepping it for paint. And it's not going to be this. There's no reason to paint this and then have this all scratched up from cheap paint. This will be Rust-Oleum mixed with acetone and Japan dryer, because that stuff works really, really good. And this is a very expensive piece, but it's very solid. It's not a cheap junk piece, which is why that's what they sell. And then your foot switch, obviously this is going to control the speed of the bandsaw instead of you just putting a strap around the trigger. 10 times better for the pedal. Alright, let's get started. So technically I'm just going to use a little jitterbug and I'm going to sand the outside part of this. A lot of this doesn't need to be sanded completely because it's going to be hidden under this piece. So the whole thing won't be sanded, just to give you an idea, but give me a minute. There we go, all nice and shiny. Ready for paint. Alright, so did anybody guess the color? Yeah, that's right, it's white, because I still have half a gallon left. Let's take a look. Look how shiny that is. You can see the background in the paint. I love this Rust-Oleum. I actually think it looks good white too. I could have painted it black, but I wanted it to stand out a little bit. Front and back. Alrighty then. Let's start putting this thing together. Alright, so now the time has come for the installation of the sides. Boy, those look good. And the top. So, can you see that shine on there? It's got some orange peel, but I don't care. So you guys know me, if you watch my builds, you know how I like my nuts and my bolts. This is what it comes with. It comes with like a set screw, a washer, a nut, an Allen wrench, and then you have your, I guess, the lockdown for the bandsaw, and then you have your 4 bolts and nuts for the sides here to screw onto the top base. Well, I went stainless. Got some Allen head bolts. I mean, these button heads are nice, but you know how I kind of like to show off and do a little bit better looking stuff. So I'm replacing it with stainless bolts. Well, they're not bolts. I'm replacing it with stainless, whatever you want to call these. Alright, let's start getting it together. Alright, so I guess while I have these bolted down to the piece of board, I am going to use this board for a base. But I don't know if I'm going to put it in this video or not, because these have the mounting holes for you to mount it anywhere you want. So I'm just going to put it on the board base instead of just letting it slide around on the metal, scratching stuff up. So let's take these pieces off. And it's that simple. So next thing you want to do is you're going to want to grab your base, turn it upside down, and put these pieces on. I also wanted to make sure that the washers, let me get in front of this to get it focused. The washers were really tight with this, so I might have to drill these out a bit. Yeah, because it's not going to work. So I'm going to make that hole just a little bit bigger. And it's just for aesthetics. You don't really need it, but it's just for aesthetics. So give me a sec. Alright, so I decided not to use the washers. So we're just going to mount them up with the screws. And it comes, like I showed you earlier, it has lock nuts, which is pretty good. That's one side, and you got your other side. Alright, so this is the back side. This is the front. And That's how she's supposed to look. So let's get the rest of the stuff mounted on there. See how that goes. Alright, so I have an adjustment Allen head type stud screw here, and then I have a lock washer or a lock nut, and it says you're supposed to put this on and the bottom of the threaded part should be flush with this. So let's get that flush. And I would call that flush right there. That's all it is. Alright, so that's that. And it shows that adjustment nut coming up right here on this side, which needs to be completely flush. You don't want it up top. And it goes on like that. You can see it on the bottom. Alright, so that's that. Then we're going to turn this thing around, and I am going to grab the bandsaw and we will mount it. Alright, let's get the saw out, see how this works. Now on the saw, you have an adjustable like rest plate here. You want to extend it all the way out. All the way out, because you're going to actually have a thumb screw type thing that tightens this down, which looks like this. Then you're going to put this puppy on here. And on the back of here, there's like a little extension that'll actually let the saw rest on this. Extend that up. And tighten the little knob as tight as you can without breaking it. Just make it snug. It doesn't have to be that super tight. And then this is what you should be left with. I mean, we still have to do the adjustments on it. And then I'll show you how it works. Cutting the cold air intake tubing or whatever you want to cut on it. So that was that part. Let me get a light. You can barely see it, but it's right there. Alright, let me get it adjusted. Alright, so it also tells you in the instructions with the adjustment nut here, you might have to grind it down a little bit if it sticks out too much once it's set on the bottom. So that's what I had to do. So instead of just videotaping that, I just took this all apart, took this back off and ground it down a little bit. Put this back on. So this is straight. You want to get a 1, 2, 3 block. make sure your blade is straight. And then obviously this has to be flush. I don't know if you can actually tell there. But right there is where it's perfectly square, and I've got just a hair to grind off this again. So let me get that ground down, and then we'll come back and readjust it, and then I'll cut something for you. Alright, one more time. So, I had to grind down the little set screw again. Put my 1, 2, 3 block. It's sitting perfect there, but if you don't put any pressure on it, you're going to have this movement. When you're cutting, it's going to have that movement. So really, you need to get that set screw down. I think I might have found another problem here, and I'll show you what it is in a second. So I'm going to put the set screw down. Tighten her up. And that's real good right there. So now that set screw is perfectly flush on the bottom, but I still have movement. There needs to be a set screw on the back side where they did drill a hole for it. I don't know why they would only send you one set screw, and now you have to get your own, which is really stupid. So, especially for the price. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and make a cut. Show you how this works with cutting cold air intakes. It's aluminum. Once again, I did get it with the Incra miter arm guard, whatever you want to call it, which runs on here. So technically, if I wanted to do it like that and hold it on there to make that perfect cut, I could do that. And I got it with a foot switch, so I don't have to be turning it on and off by hand, or just put in a strap on the trigger. So let me get this set up where I want to do the cuts, and then we'll cut it. And like I said, this thing's really wobbly. It needs that other set screw. I believe that set screw should have came with the kit. There is already a hole drill there, so it was already known here that you were going to need a screw there. But overall, that's what it is, folks. It's a really nice setup. Alright, so as far as the foot switch goes, on the foot switch itself, it just plugs into an outlet, and then your saw will plug right in between it. Your outlet, your saw, and the foot switch. So when you hit the foot switch, you ain't got to touch nothing. So we'll put that on the floor. And that's pretty cool to me. Alright, let me get a intake tube. Alright, so I was thinking I was going to cut it like this first, just to make a cut, but it's no really use in wasting it because you know it's going to come out crooked. You really need to have this on there to help you. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut right on the bottom ridge of this, and I'm going to see how straight it cuts all the way across, cutting the bottom ridge with the Incra guide. I really know that I need a set screw in there because, like I said, look at that. There's too much play in it to only have one set screw. So let's see what happens here. As a matter of fact, I'm going to get my ABC, my 1, 2, 3 block and see if it's still straight. And it's pretty much dead on, so it's still straight. Alright, so let's see how this goes. Love the foot switch. Well, I don't know if you can tell, but it cut it as crooked as shit. Now, I don't know if it's because this moves. See how much movement that has? Yeah, I'm not happy with that. I'm going to try it one more time. Alright, I'm going to try the other side of this. This is pretty cut, pretty straight. It is pretty thick. I forget what the gauge on it. I think it's 10 gauge. But let's see what happens. Again. I'm going to take the sharp edge off of this so I'm not cutting on the top of this, so give me 1 sec. Alright, so I took all the rough edge off the edge, or sharp edges off the edge. That way they don't cut into the brand new top. Let's try this again. I'm just going to cut just a thin piece off it. This does need to be bolted down because I noticed as I was pushing into it, it was pushing back. So that's another reason why I was going to put that board on the bottom. As far as cutting, I think Milwaukee blades are the worst, stupidest blades ever. I don't know if that's why it's so hard to cut through this, but I'm gonna cut off maybe like 1/2 inch and we'll see what happens. Once again, it's giving me pie cuts. I'm holding that thing as straight as I can. Now I'm not going to badmouth it because I'm not sure if it's due to that set screw, and this has the movement, which I don't believe should have the movement once again. So I don't want to badmouth it until I find out what. Every video I've seen on this, people have had good replies and so forth, so it could be, once again, it could be the set screw or it could be something else. Other than that, it's just a simple base. You got to do your adjustment. The rest is up to you. So I don't know what's going on here, but I have seen a bunch of videos on this. I don't think that Swag Off-Road is giving these away to everybody so that they can get reviews, but everybody does have good reviews on it. I know a lot of people do use these for cutting cold air intakes and hot sides for turbo sides. So what's going on here, I don't know, but overall it is a good solid table. It is what it is for what you pay for. So I'm assuming it's got to be this movement that's doing it. So I'll probably do a review on it later. I know if I had a set screw in here, this thing would be solid, and possibly I wouldn't be making pie cuts. So overall, we'll see what happens, but as far as I know, this is a good table. Alright, so I just got off the phone with Swag Off-Road, and they did explain to me that this little bit of movement would be causing that, and that they normally don't send out that set screw because not all of the bandsaws are manufactured the same, or they might have some variances, so I probably have one of those. But I know if this was solid and there was no movement, I'm pretty sure that this wouldn't be pie cutting. Obviously I was holding it completely tight up against the guard here, miter saw, or miter, and it was still moving on me. And like I said, you probably can't see it, but this sucker's moving. So I put my money on that. I know this is good. There's been a whole lot of reviews on this. I know it's good. If I get the set screw and it doesn't work and we can't get this straightened out, then I don't know what the deal is, but I'll tell you what, this is basically just a table and you're putting your saw on it. Once you straighten it up and it's solid, it has to cut straight. So we'll see what happens.